The scissors glinted under the harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital locker room as my sister Nicole hacked through my brand new scrubs with vicious precision. Each cut felt like a blade through my dreams, through the 4 grueling years of nursing school I'd just completed, through every sacrifice I'd made to stand where I was today. "Find a different hospital," she hissed, her face twisted with rage as navy fabric scattered across the white linoleum floor like pieces of my shattered confidence. "This is MY territory. I've been here 5 years. You don't get to waltz in and embarrass me with your perfect grades and your magna cum laude nonsense." I stood frozen in the doorway, my employee ID badge still warm from the printer, my orientation packet clutched in trembling hands. This was supposed to be my first day at St. Mary's Medical Center, the hospital I'd dreamed of working at since I was 12 years old, watching our mothers slowly fade away in their oncology ward. "Nicole, please," I whispered, watching her destroy the 3rd set of scrubs. "There are over 800 nurses here. We don't even work on the same floor." "Exactly." She whirled on me, scissors still in hand. "I'm stuck in General Med SURG, while baby sister gets hired straight into the cardiac ICU. Do you know how that makes me look? Everyone's already talking about you." Nicole's genius sister. Nicole's sister who graduated top of her class. Nicole's sister who got 3 job offers before graduation. What she didn't see, what her rage had blinded her to, was the figure standing in the doorway behind her. Head nurse Margaret O'Brien, all 6 feet of her commanding presence, watched with an expression that could have frozen hell itself. She'd come to personally welcome me to the unit, she'd mentioned in her email. She wanted to introduce me to the team before the morning shift started. Instead, she was witnessing my sister, a 5-year employee, destroying hospital property while threatening a new hire. Her eyes met mine over Nicole's shoulder, and she raised a finger to her lips. "Wait, you always had to be better," Nicole continued, oblivious. "Better grades, better recommendations, better everything. Well, not here. This is where I matter, where I'm respected, and I'll make sure everyone knows what a fake you really are. How you cried for mommy every night during nursing school. How you had panic attacks before every exam. How you had to overcome anxiety to achieve excellence." Margaret O'Brien's voice cut through the room like a scalpel through skin. Nicole spun around so fast she nearly dropped the scissors. The color drained from her face in seconds, leaving her as pale as the destroyed scrubs at her feet. "Mrs. O'Brien, this isn't. I can explain." "Please do," Margaret said, stepping into the room. Her shoes clicked against the floor with military precision. "Explain to me why you're destroying hospital property. Explain why you're threatening a new employee. Explain why you're in the cardiac ICU locker room when you work in Med SURG. And most importantly, explain why I shouldn't call security right now and have you escorted off the premises permanently." Nicole's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "She's my sister," she finally managed. "This is a family matter. The moment you brought it into my hospital, into my unit, it became my matter," Margaret replied coldly. She pulled out her phone and started recording. "For the record, this is head nurse Margaret O'Brien, documenting the destruction of hospital property and workplace harassment by Nicole Santos, employee ID 45782. The date is April 15th, 6:47 a.m. "Please," Nicole begged, the scissors clattering to the floor. "I've worked here for 5 years. I've never had a single complaint. This was just, I was upset. Our dad always compared us, and you decided to perpetuate that cycle of abuse?" Margaret's eyebrow rose. "How many other employees have you bullied that we don't know about? How many stayed silent because you've been here longer?" The question hung in the air like a heart monitor's final beep. I knew the answer. Nicole had bragged about making 2 new nurses cry last month, about how she'd toughened them up. She called it teaching. Everyone else called it what it was when she wasn't around, bullying. "Savannah," Margaret turned to me, her voice softening slightly. "Are you hurt?" "No, ma'am. Just shocked." "Understandably. Those were your scrubs?" "Yes, ma'am. All 3 pairs I bought for orientation." Margaret nodded, then turned back to Nicole. "That's $180 worth of destroyed uniforms, plus the trauma of workplace harassment before even starting the job. Security will be here in 2 minutes. You have that long to decide whether you want to resign with a neutral reference or be terminated with cause, which will go on your permanent record and be reported to the nursing board." Nicole's legs gave out. She sank onto the bench, her face in her hands. "You can't do this. I have loans. I have rent. This job is everything to me. And yet you were willing to destroy your sister's chance at the same opportunity, Margaret observed. Savannah, did you want to press charges for destruction of property and harassment? I looked at my sister, crumpled on the bench surrounded by the fabric pieces of what had been my first day outfit. Part of me wanted to say yes, to let her face the full consequences of her actions. But then I remembered what our mother said during her last week in this very hospital. Take care of each other. You're all you have left. No charges, I said quietly. But I want no contact at work. Different shifts if necessary. Margaret studied me for a moment, then nodded. Security's here, she announced as 2 guards appeared in the doorway. Nicole Santos, you have 30 seconds to make your decision. Nicole looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. Savannah, please. Talk to her. Make her understand. I'm sorry, okay? I've worked so hard to be good enough. And then you show up and what? I finally found my voice. Earned my place through my own merit? Nicole, I didn't graduate magna cum laude despite you. I didn't apply to this hospital to overshadow you. I came here because Mom died here, and the nurses in this place, in this very unit, made her last days bearable. I wanted to be that for someone else's family. 20 seconds, Margaret announced. But they already love you, Nicole sobbed. Dr. Harrison mentioned you in the staff meeting. Said you had the highest NCLEX score he'd seen in 10 years. I've been here 5 years, and he doesn't even know my first name. Because you spend more energy tearing others down than building yourself up, Margaret said bluntly. 10 seconds. I'll resign, Nicole whispered. The room fell silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant sounds of the hospital waking up for the morning shift. Margaret nodded to the security guards, who stepped back but remained present. You have 1 hour to clean out your locker and return your badge. HR will mail your final check. Your resignation will be listed as personal reasons if anyone calls for a reference. But if I hear you've come within 100 feet of this hospital or contacted any staff member about this incident, I'll file a formal complaint with the State Nursing Board. Understood? Nicole nodded mutely, then looked at me one last time. I suppose you're happy now. You got what you wanted. No, I said sadly. I wanted a sister who'd be proud of me, who'd show me around on my first day, who'd grab coffee with me between shifts and complain about difficult patients. I wanted us to finally work together instead of against each other. But you chose this instead. Nicole fled the room, the security guards following at a respectful distance. Margaret waited until their footsteps faded, then turned to me with a completely different expression, warm and genuinely concerned. Well, she said, this isn't how I planned to welcome you to St. Mary's. I laughed, but it came out more like a sob. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving me shaky and exhausted before my shift even began. Margaret walked over to a locker and pulled out a set of navy scrubs, tags still on. These are mine, but we're about the same size. Consider them a welcome gift and an apology for what you just experienced. You don't have to. Savannah, she interrupted gently, can I share something with you? 30 years ago, I was the new grad with the highest NCLEX score. My older brother worked in the radiology department here. He tried something similar, not scissors, but sabotage nonetheless. Deleted my parking access, so I'd be late, told everyone I'd cheated my way through school, even hid my stethoscope on my first day. I stared at her in surprise. The difference, she continued, was that no one stood up for me. I had to fight that battle alone for 2 years before he finally transferred to another hospital. I promised myself that if I ever became head nurse, I wouldn't let another new grad go through that. Especially not from their own family. She handed me the scrubs. Your mother was one of my patients 15 years ago, before I moved to cardiac. Elena Santos, room 314, right? My eyes widened. You remember her? I remember she talked about her 2 daughters constantly. How proud she was of both of you. How she hoped you'd both become nurses and take care of each other. Margaret's expression was sad but kind. She would have been heartbroken to see what happened today, but proud that you chose compassion over revenge. I clutched the scrubs, fighting back tears. I don't know if I made the right choice. She'll just do this to someone else. Maybe, Margaret agreed. Or maybe losing this job will be the wake-up call she needs. Either way, it's not your responsibility to fix her. Your responsibility is to become the excellent nurse I know you can be. She checked her watch. You have 30 minutes before orientation starts. Get changed, grab a coffee from the break room. The real stuff, not the swamp water from the vending machine, and meet me at the nurse's station. I want to introduce you to the team properly. As she turned to leave, she paused. Oh, and Savannah? That NCLEX score? It wasn't the highest in 10 years. It was the highest in the hospital's history. Dr. Harrison undersold it because he knew about your sister's competitiveness issues. We've been watching the situation, hoping she'd handle your arrival professionally. I came early specifically to run interference if needed. I just didn't expect to need it quite this dramatically. You knew this might happen? We suspected. 3 nurses have requested transfers from MedSURG in the last year, all citing personality conflicts with your sister. HR had been building a case, but she was always careful enough to avoid witnesses. Margaret smiled grimly. Until today. After she left, I stood alone in the locker room, surrounded by the destroyed remnants of what should have been my perfect first day. But as I changed into Margaret's scrubs, which fit perfectly, as if the universe had planned this, I realized something. Nicole had tried to cut up my dreams, but she'd only destroyed fabric. The dreams themselves, the knowledge, the compassion I wanted to bring to my patients, those were intact. If anything, they were stronger now, tempered by this bizarre trial by fire. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is HR. We've processed the incident report. The hospital will reimburse you for the destroyed uniforms and provide you with a full set from our supplier. Also, the chief of medicine would like to meet with you this afternoon. Not about the incident, about the research position that's opening up in cardiac. Your thesis on post-operative arrhythmias caught his attention. Welcome to St. Mary's. I smiled, then looked up at the ceiling. Thanks, Mom, I whispered. I think your nurse friends are looking out for me. The morning shift was starting. I could hear the bustling of nurses preparing for rounds, the beeping of monitors, the controlled chaos that I'd trained for. My sister was gone, but my career was just beginning. As I walked to the nurse's station, several people nodded and smiled at me. Word had already spread, not about the drama, but about Margaret O'Brien personally welcoming the new cardiac ICU nurse. In this hospital, that was better than any recommendation. There she is, Margaret announced as I approached. Everyone meet Savannah Santos, our newest teammate. And before anyone asks, yes, she's the one with the record NCLEX score. Yes, she graduated magna cum laude. And yes, she's already corrected an error in our training manual that's been there for 3 years. The team laughed and welcomed me warmly. As they shared their names and experiences, I felt something I hadn't expected, belonging. Not because I was Nicole's sister, but because I was Savannah, future cardiac ICU nurse, research assistant, and survivor of the most dramatic first day in St. Mary's history. 6 months later, I was thriving. The research position had led to a publication opportunity. My patient satisfaction scores were in the 98th percentile. And Margaret had become not just a mentor, but a friend. Nicole had found work at a small clinic 3 towns over. She'd sent one letter, not an apology exactly, but an acknowledgement. She was in therapy, she wrote, working on her jealousy issues. She included a check for the destroyed scrubs, though the hospital had already replaced them. I didn't respond, but I didn't throw the letter away either. Maybe someday, when the wounds had healed more fully, we could try again. But for now, I was exactly where I belonged, surrounded by people who valued excellence over ego and compassion over competition. And every morning, when I put on my scrubs intact and scissors-free, I remember that sometimes the worst moments of our lives clear the path for the best ones.